Folks, in closing, again, thank all of my colleagues for coming here. Let me appeal for each one of you listening to this through the news channels and through the media. We need your help. We the people call in 100 senators and tell them to come back. We can't individually do it ourselves or as a group. We need every American to get on the phone, text, call your senators to get them back up here and do the job. America is waiting. As has been said, now's the time, and we can't wait any longer. We'll be glad to take some questions.
Thanks, sir. Congresswoman Luna brought this up a little bit, but Speaker Johnson said multiple times yesterday he thinks the path now is to include some SAVE-like elements in reconciliation involving the grant program. Is that something you guys would support in reconciliation, or think that this satisfies the need for the SAVE?
We'll let each one of them speak, but from my standpoint, I don't want to vote on anything else. Until this is passed and attached to the bills coming forward, I'm not voting for anything. And I think a lot of people are fed up. That's our way of saying, come back and do your job. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would add is we're not interested in getting a watered-down version of this. And a lot of things were thrown around about saying that the Save America Act can ride on reconciliation. And with all due respect, we've not gotten any signals from the Senate that they're inclined to, essentially overturn the parliamentarian and basically blow up the Byrd rule to say that they're going to allow this to pass alongside a reconciliation product. Step one, if you're going to have a reconciliation product, is have a reconciliation product that we can all support. We've not seen that yet. Step two is if you're going to attach the Save America Act, attach it in full, and then force the Senate to have to act on it. If the Senate chooses to water it down, then we'll have another bite at the apple when it comes back here, and we can tell them what we would do or not do. But what my message is to the Speaker and generally is, don't think we're going to just go add some token measures onto what frankly is not even a product yet that we should be sending over on its own merit, the reconciliation bill, and then say that we've somehow accomplished what we need to do on the Save America Act. We believe, like the President, we need the entirety of the Save America Act passed, and the Senate needs to have that now. And to my colleague's point, get back on the floor of the Senate. Why did you leave last night? Yesterday was Wednesday. They adjourned on Wednesday night to go home for, what, 2.5 weeks? I mean, I can tell you something. I represent Kerrville. I need to be in Texas next weekend if I can be, a year after those tragic floods. But I'll be right here on July 3rd, July 4th, and I won't be at the fireworks. I'll be here debating if the Senate will come back and do their job. I won't go anywhere. I'll be happy to be here. The Senate ought to do their job. One final point, not to filibuster, so to speak, but keep in mind, has anybody actually looked at and studied the names of the Senate office buildings and what they were involved with in the talking filibuster of the Civil Rights Act? Dirksen, Russell, the Mansfield room where these guys meet half the time. Do these senators have any knowledge of history? Any concept of what's actually gone on before them? Where Russell was blocking the Civil Rights Act, where Dirksen was trying to get it accomplished, where Mansfield, and you had cross-party lines here, was working to get it accomplished, and they forced it through after 3 months of intense fighting, where blocks of Democrats, particularly Southern Bloc Democrats, didn't want to move the Civil Rights Act, and they used this process to get it done. What are they afraid of? That's the actual history when they have all of their highfalutin lunches in all of these rooms and they sit in their, finally appointed offices in the Senate. And they're sitting in the places that are named after the people that use this very tool to try to accomplish something for the American people.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I know that you've all made clear that your end goal is for the Senate to come back and pass the Save America Act. But I'm curious this week, with the rule for the appropriations bills kind of stalled, is there anything that Speaker Johnson could offer you in the interim that would get you to vote for that rule and kind of unblock the floor temporarily?
What I'd like to see is the Speaker up here with us calling for the same things we are. Put this, make the appeal to the Senate to come back and pass this thing. And let me add one other thing. We just had a vote in South Carolina. You know how many people voted? We got 5.2 million people. We have 3.3 registered voters. Less than 20%. And I think a lot of that is people feel disenfranchised, that their vote doesn't count. This will cure that. But to answer your question, this ought to be an all-out assault. We ought to have every member up here making the appeal to pass this. And as Chip said, if put it in its entirety, and then let's debate anything that they have a problem with. But they're empty words. particularly with Schumer and so many of the other senators.
The only other thing we'd add on the rule process is, there are other things that we've been talking to leadership about that we expect to get accomplished. For example, codification of border security in H.R. 2 that we passed in the last Congress. One of my colleagues said, well, the Senate might not pass that. Well, you know what? The legislative process starts with one of the two houses putting something forward to the other one. We ought to send H.R. 2, or the variation of it, and we've filed it, and it's sitting there, and by the way, the Speaker has said that we ought to move it. Let's move it. Let's put it on the floor. So we've got a lot of things that we think we ought to do to demonstrate to the American people that we're serious, that we want to deliver for them, do what we said we would do. And if the Senate wants to hide behind rules, they're the ones that have to answer for that. But we're the House of Representatives. We're the people's house. So we should send H.R. 2 in a codified version of what the president has been doing to secure the border. And there are other things we ought to deal. We ought to deal with congressional stock trading. We ought to deal with important issues like central bank digital currency, which, you know, we've been sitting there floating along a halfway version of it on the housing bill. And, you know, we ought to get a full permanent ban on that. And while we're sitting here with FISA having been authorized, why don't we protect American people from warrantless surveillance of their communications? There are a lot of things we ought to do that we said we would do. And before we're moving legislation that, frankly, isn't worth it, like the housing bill or bloated other bills, let's move the stuff the American people want us to.